It would be cool if we did it like this. We're facing each other, like this is a book club. And then you're facing me. I'd be just in frame like this. What do you guys think? Would that look cool?
We'll be antisocial and not talk to our dear patrons.
My mom said we shouldn't do that because part of what makes Maria's narrations great is that it feels like she's speaking to you, the viewer.
As someone who was chatted up by Maria. Can I test?
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. This will be after a cold open because I'm sure I won't be lazy and forget to do that this time. For those of you who are shocked, we are investing in AI technology. That's why it appears as though me and Ellen are in the same place, despite her being in Sweden and I being in Satan's butthole, aka Florida. But this is new tech that they're using with green screen. I don't know, facial recognition. But the book we're doing today is The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This was a mid-month book because it didn't win the end-of-month book for last month. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool. This is supposed to be like medieval horror. There's a castle, there's a siege, there's 3 female characters within it, and then some like weird paranormal stuff starts to happen. Ellen, would you say that this novel is good?
I think this novel would be an excellent testament to why Will should not be allowed to pick the book for this podcast anymore.
I've said this before, heavy weighs the crown, ponderous swings the dick. So, I thought this was going to be great because it sounded really cool and it's kind of bad. But what's interesting about it is that it's bad in a way that the books we read aren't typically bad. Like we read a lot of bad books here, unfortunately, but this is bad in a different way. It's doing different things poorly. That is going to be interesting to talk about. I think it's a little harder to describe why it doesn't work. To me, it felt like a lot of the kind of building blocks of what the author wanted to do, she just didn't put in place. And so even though like this is a very short book, it feels very long and monotonous.
I read in our book club chat. By the way, we have a Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
And the Patreon has a book club. And in the book club chat, we chat about the books that we are currently reading. And
join to support independent journalism and this new AI technology that we're investing.
Was it Asimov who made the quote that at some point technology becomes so advanced it's basically magic? Yeah. Was it Asimov?
I have no idea. I think it was Charles Darwin. Also, you're going to see a fly. Darwin. For some reason, there's a lot of flies in Sweden.
Maria, if you hear this, who said that quote?
Is there a catfishing term for books? Because it's this. It sounds so wrong. It does. You think it's going to be good, and then it's just horny. And you're like, I came for horror, not for horny.
This book, it promised it's dark fantasy in a vaguely medieval world with a siege. Anything in a war setting, I'm just a sucker for. I'm like, yay, misery. And it also promises that there's going to be creepy monsters and quite possibly the eating of the original white flesh, if you know what I mean.
Long pig, I believe, is what the natives call it. You go into this thinking it's going to be kind of moody and dark and horror-y and like a little gothic-y maybe. And it really isn't. What would you say is the premise?
Premise is your territory, Will.
Oh, okay. That's the other thing you guys are going to have to realize is that going through the plot synopsis of this is going to be very difficult because so much nothing happens in this book. Characters just go around in little circles.
I'll make a go of it. The plot premise for this book is that Amar Castle is being laid under siege by a nation called Etrevia. They have been in a stalemate for 6 months, and as you can all surmise, the castle's provisions are running extremely low, which means that everyone is kind of starting to resort to extreme measures. And the king, who has inexplicably been trapped in this castle, has thus given the lord of the castle's weird woman the task of accomplishing a miracle. She must replenish the food stores so that the siege may continue?
Yes, so that they won't get starved out.
Yeah, and just when it seems that all hope is lost, some weirdos show up and bad things start to happen. I'm sorry, I did a terrible job of that.
Okay, so let's try this again. There's 3 main characters whose names I'm going to get consistently wrong on purpose. also because I don't have the ability to get it right. There is, again, like she said, there's a castle. It's under siege by Erebria. This is a second world fantasy, though we'll talk about how that's a mistake. Atribia, even though that's kind of a mistake. And inside the castle are all three characters. One of them is Phone. Phone used to be part of like the nunnery, the priory there, but she got cast out because she was doing too much magic, like science-y stuff.
For us normal people.
Now she just hangs out, and she's been given this task to create food from nothing. And then you have Vor, who is like the knight. She's a very tough kind of butch character who's serving the king. And there's a lot of kind of complicated, dumb stuff about how like she's leashed now. We'll talk about it. She's basically like the hard ass. And she's given the job of protecting Phone while she looks over these...
Servoin,
right. And then you may be thinking, oh, okay, that makes sense. Who's our third character? Random. Travis is someone who has snuck into the castle and is there to kill Servoin because Servoin killed her father publicly and she was cast out into the wilderness. And like she's had a hard life. And if you think, oh, wow, that's so sad, I guess we'll probably learn more about her dad besides the fact that he died, you would be wrong. That will not happen in this novel. You will just keep hearing about how sad it is that her father got his head chopped off.
He means trailer. Yes.
Yeah, trailer trash, as I call her.
During our listening of this book, we kept saying how sometimes the audio narrator sounds like they're saying trailer.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't remember the other word.
No, it just sounds like trailer. So I would call her Travis. That's my own little...
Just to confuse me.
It's trailer trash Travis.
Yeah, this
trailer trash Travis.
Trailer trash Travis. Yeah. And this is why I have a cheat sheet with names on it. Because we'll...
Unfortunately, now I'm going to actually have to use it because, yeah, you're right. Now I can actually just see it.
See?
Okay. All right. Fine. But yeah, and so Trela is there to kill Servoin, but also she kind of was into Servoin. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting that 5 years ago, before Servoin killed her father, she had a little bit of a crush on her. I'm sure that wouldn't last, though. Like, a crush wouldn't last 5 years in a parent's death.
Because Trela is kind of Arya Stark. She was like, I want to be trained with a blade. I want to be a badass girly, too. And Servoin, who is a female knight, was like, I'll teach you sexily. And even though by all accounts Trela was a child and Servoin is a decade older, and it's just a little bit creepy in my opinion, it was supposedly rather hot.
Trela suffers from that YA, or not YA protagonist, but that protagonist problem where their job is to kill someone and they're consistently bad at it and they keep coming up with reasons not to do it. Like, they've been in this siege for 6 months now. You would think she would have just killed her already. It's not even played off like she was going to kill her and then the siege happened and now she doesn't have an escape plan, so she's waiting to kill her. It's just literally like she just won't kill her.
Can I just say something? Can we please stop making romantic pairings where one of the two characters have executed the other person's parent, and not like a complicated love parent, possibly moral gray bad parent,
abuse.
But this was a highly loved parent, because that just sounds toxic to me. Like, if you can erode your brain into the fine dust until you no longer remember the emotional trauma, the deep emotional trauma and the deep emotional betrayal of this person killing your loved one.
Okay, so here's what you need to realize. This book comes off like fanfic the author wrote of themselves, or not of themselves, but of their own characters. I've said that before. I mean, honestly, maybe. But this author is way too enamored with her characters. What are you saying?
Thank you, Kat.
Are you saying that someone hot killing your parents is not sexy?
Thank you, Kat. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Hot take, but no. And we'll talk about that more. But again, the characters here are treated too preciously. It feels a lot like the author was just horny for all three of them. And especially Travis feels weird because she's like a anime protagonist in the middle of a dark fantasy siege.
Yeah, she's also kind of the secret royal trope, except it serves absolutely no purpose for the story.
We mentioned this before, but the plot for this is going to be a little confusing because after the beginning, there's a middle section that's just like people going in circles. Chris M. on her final thoughts mentioned that the author has said that she wrote some of the scenes out of, not that Chris M. wrote them out of order, but the author wrote some of the scenes out of order. And that checks out because a lot of them are kind of pointless.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
lot of these scenes read as if they were written in
one-handed.
Yeah, and in isolation from each other. Kind of like when you write fanfic and you publish one chapter every 1 week or every 2 weeks or something like that. It's not it's
cohesive.
It's not cohesive. They don't lead into each other and build on each other. It's just like, this is this chapter of this person looking at their belly button and thinking about this thing. And this chapter is of this character looking at their belly button and thinking about things.
I cannot overstate how annoyed by some of the prose ticks that this author has that ticked off Alan. I will say overall, this book is like, the writing is not terrible. Like, again, we're gonna get into some stylistic things that are really annoying, but it's not like this is like Fourth Wing, where like all the dialogue is painful, the prose are uninspired. It's more just that like the author doesn't set up like the character backstory, why you should care about these two characters macking on each other, and then just a lot in the middle, nothing happens. So we'll talk about it as we go.
First of all, I want the record to show that this character has committed the most egregious offense of all, which is they have disappointed me. They promised me a good book and it wasn't. Minus 100 points from Gryffindor.
That's the funny thing too, is this is a relatively short book and yet it feels so long. Do you want to start on the plot?
No.
I will start on the plot. It's down to the Triari. Okay, so like we said, Focine is in a tower. She's hanging around. She sees the king come up. King shows up and is like, Focine, you were able to turn water clean. That's cool, but now we need food from nothing. And she's like, I don't even know how I did that thing. I was basically just like...
I sneezed and it happened.
Yeah, it came to me in a dream. I don't know if I can do it again. And he's like, well, to make sure you do, I'm going to have Servoin, my knight, babysit you. She's like, oh shit, that's gonna be bad because I can't do nothing while Servoin is there.
Yeah, because I'm the special type of quirky who can just work in isolation. Let's see. Mon Chéri says, so was Faux, as in Focine, fixing the water magic or science? I didn't really get it. I think the book is trying to tread this line where science and magic is kind of intertwined, and there is some level of plausible deniability. At least my conclusion is that it is definitely some kind of magic. Yeah, it's alchemy, which is a kind of magic. In this scene, we come to my first grievance with this book. I have a quote for you. It goes...
Okay, so you guys can see it on screen now. You may read it from the tablet.
This is when Focine is just sitting in her shitty little dingy room and talking to her two magical demon pets that she is pretending are not demons, even though they popped into existence in a smell of sulfur, even though she has no fire in the room. The king stands just outside her rooms. She shoves the glass-capped pipe away, then grabs it again, cursing and pierces it once more. Yes, it is the king, still in velvet finery after all these months. A little thinner in the cheeks, but not by much. He stands at ease, flanked by guards, but not wearing armor himself. He trusts these walls to defend him, and he has not come to kill her. Silly, the king would never kill her. He has people for that. There is so much with this sentence to talk about. First of all, one of my biggest pet peeves with fantasy is when we have monarchy and the monarch is pretty much your boss at work. He walks around with his henchmen everywhere. He does everything in person. He is not completely bogged down by tasks of administration. And for some reason, people believe that if he wants someone dead, he would come to them himself.
Here's the thing that's kind of weird about this, especially because the reason that Focine is still around as a witch woman is some guy, Sir Leon de Vore?
Leon de Gardis.
Leon de Gardis, the guy who actually like is the lord of this spot, was like, okay, you can stay here. It's never going to explain why he does this. It would be a much stronger scene if Leo de Gardus was the one to come and communicate this to her, because then you could also get some of her backstory more organically. You could feel like, okay, there's some emotional stakes here because she either feels like she owes him a little bit, or she doesn't owe him, or she's resentful, or she's not. Just having it be the king is A, a little weird, and B, is just weaker. One of the problems this book is going to have is that it feels like this castle has 5 people in it, and that's it. And halfway through the book, 2 of them get eaten. It's just not a good use of space in the novel. But basically, he tells Focine, okay, well, I'm going to have Servoin come and she's going to babysit you.
The thing is, he doesn't actually tell Focine that Servoin is going to come. No, he doesn't say Servoin specifically. He just says, I'm going to give you this task and maybe have someone oversee you. So we'll make sure that you have everything you need.
The thing about it is that we now get introduced to Servoin through Focine's viewpoint, because she's looking out at the yard and there's like a riot, and there's this tough knight lady who's like knocking heads and being tough and cool. And this we learn is Servoin. And there's a point made quite a few times in Servoin's perspective and in others that she's kind of like a trapped lion at this point. Like she's serving in the king's guard, but she should be out on a field charging people down. She used to be making decisions and now she doesn't. You know, that kind of a thing. There's a quote that Ellen has where she's like, after knocking around that crowd, she wishes she could be more violent, essentially, I think was what it was. It feels very broad for a character. It doesn't feel like a thing a real person would think.
The quote is specifically to one of the prose funny things that I'm a petty bitch, so I like complaining about it. The quote is, "It's sun on armor, the blinding reflection of a knight's breastplate, and the only knights who go about in metal armor inside the walls are the king's knights. The woman, within brackets, for the side of her head is shaved, and the remaining dark hair hangs in a braid to her shoulders," those brackets, "has climbed on top of the garden wall, and she bellows for order." So I guess we're supposed to know that this is a woman because she has half her head shaved. But also, this kind of ties into, you're thinking that, oh, they're under siege, it's a long-drawn siege, food is running out, there's a riot, a hunger riot, we can assume. And yet the king is faffing about with only 2 guards, and he's not wearing armor, and he's just walking around the castle.
He kind of destroys some of the veracity of the world if he's just not acting in a way that makes a ton of sense. Like they're this close to a riot. It would be much more evocative if he was like in his throne room and didn't really want to like leave it. Like he kind of felt unsafe. That's one of the things that we're going to get, is that we don't really get, we skip 6 months into this siege and we don't actually build up the time to feel like this is a siege.
Yeah, and throughout the book, it makes this continuous mistake of pretending or acting or thinking that the king's biggest enemy for a long time is the enemy outside the walls. Whereas in this situation, it would be far more likely that, you know, his greatest enemy would be within the walls, someone who is very tired of starving with absolutely no prospect of rescue, no prospect of victory. Like they're just slowly dying in here. They have already called for reinforcements weeks ago and no one has come.
It's a problem, and it's going to become a problem because you think where this story is going has to do with like desperation and religiosity, and the siege is going to be a pressure cooker of that. And so right from the beginning, we should be getting that the king is paranoid about this happening, but instead he's just like hanging around in nice clothes, walking places, talking to witches. I mean, even the fact that the king is talking to a witch should be in the social fabric of this world a deleterious thing. That's why he should be sending Sir Leongardus to do this. And he isn't. And that may seem like a nitpick, but that's one of the things you need to realize, is that this book does not set up its world very well. So the impact of the moments is not very high later on.
Yes, and as we learn later, like the king and Sir Leongardus have history together, and Sir Leongardus and Servoin has history together. So it's not as if the lord of this castle is a stranger to the king. It makes perfect sense that the hierarchy would be that he orders the lord around, so the lord makes things happen, whilst he is doing the very important job of being a king in a safe place. So there's a riot.
Yes, there is a riot.
our introduction to Sirvoin is that she hops up in all shiny armor and she just dives into the mob of people, and she puts down this riot because none of the people, none of the populace are armed. As we learn in just a few minutes, we're going to find out that no one has anything of iron left because it has all been seized by the priory. So she puts down this riot without killing anyone, because she's a protagonist, so obviously she has to
propaganda.
She has to be good, but she has to be
Propaganda.
badass at the same time. Like, she has to be a badass boss bitch. So in her first few paragraphs that we get in her perspective, instantly we get this quote: Sirvoin, still sweat-soaked and itching for a proper fight in the wake of the riot, listens at the rest of the king's fellows debate the merits of killing their own.
So this very much annoyed her, and I get why, because it is trying too hard to be kind of Martin or Abercrombie-esque.
Yeah, do you know what you call a dangerous, well-trained fighter who is armed and armored, who just loves fighting, who doesn't really care who they're fighting, they're just spoiling for a fight? That's a fucking madman. Like, that isn't, like, we're trying to pitch it as a character point, like she feels disenfranchised from her life because she's put in this really boring situation as a king's guard, and she is bored, and that is realistic. Guarding a king probably wasn't all that fun, but that a war hero, we rather quickly learn that she is a war hero. She has seen real war. She has been in a famous siege. That a real war hero has seen the horrors of war would actively sit and ruminate how they wish to, slash people into pieces and bash heads together because they're bored. It's a little worrying.
The thing is, at first, she's a little anti-hero coded, where you think you're going to find out that she's done all these bad things in her past, and then later on you figure, because from Travis's point of view, she killed her father.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like, that could be fun.
No, that would do something. The problem with Sirvoin is that she doesn't really have a conflict that the story is going to take her on a character for. It literally is kind of like, what's her problem? Well, she has to follow around what people say. Okay, that's not really a problem. By the end of the novel, she's not going to have learned that, like, well, we'll get to that when we get there, but there's no real arc for her to grow on. That's sort of kind of one of the problems, honestly, with this book, is all the characters at the beginning are kind of fine. They don't really have problems per se. Then, like, if this is a Disney song, none of them have an I Want song. And so that's kind of the problem with a lot of the character growth here, is that it's not really growth. Oh, and Chris M says,
yeah.
And later on, she keeps breaking down and crying because the author needs her to be vulnerable to make some of the horny
next thing. Like, the next thing, as soon as she doesn't get what she wants, because she goes round to pretty much every single person, and she's like, "Oh, send me out. I'll just do a heroic thing and win this siege, or I'll send a message. Just send me out. I'll do it on my own." And then when people with better sense than her say no, she has to constantly hold back tears because she is not only bloodthirsty, she's also very emotional. Honestly, this is a good setup for a character who is very selfish. Like, it isn't entirely sympathetic that she is a knight who, during the siege, is being better fed than most other people. Like, she is in physically better condition. She has a really prestigious position, even if it's not the most fun thing to do. And yet all she thinks about is how unfortunate she is and how she wants to do fighting.
Yeah, it's weird because the book really doesn't treat other people in the castle as real. So, like, normally in a book like this, you would spend the first couple chapters kind of outlining who some of the people in the castle are. You kind of create an environment. Naomi Novik does this very often. Her casts feel like places and with people in them. Her settings feel like places. So then later what happens with the saints and the cannibalism would carry more impact, but it doesn't really happen here because there's only like 4 people in this castle and 2 guards who have like pipsqueaky voices.
Allegedly. The book says that there are 300 times 3 people in the castle, but we never see any of them.
Yeah, no. Again, the king has lines. Sir Leo de Gardis has some lines, and Leo de Gardis is actually the best character in the book because he actually has a few
He's
lines.
the proper badass. Like Sir Voin is the salty one who thinks she's the badass, but Sir Leotard is totally the best one.
The king is basically like, okay, Sir Voin, go watch the first scene, and Sir Voin is like. But she goes and does it, and the two of them don't get along at first. Sir Voin is like very like, oh, I'm mad and angry, and Faustine is like, no,
I'm mad and angry and kind of childish. Like, how old is this woman? Anyone who I might have missed it if the book at some point establishes her age. All I know is that it says she's about a decade older than
Travis. She has the
emotional
childish.
Maturity of a 20-year-old or younger. And also, very importantly, hi, welcome.
Hello. No, I thought the one that you were going to say is very important is, and they have a choking kink, which will also become relevant as this book goes on.
It's so mainstream nowadays.
Like, guys, it's girls. So they're arguing, and actually, this is not a bad setup. Again, Sir Voin is coming off as very childish, and there really should be more of a religious tone to this, considering that religiosity should be a larger part of this book. But it is a bit of an odd couple. Like, okay, they're going to have to learn to work together. There's contrasting personalities. This scene has some energy to it, and they're actually both characters.
And while I think that the character voices of our three main characters aren't that well established, I will say that Faustine is a rather specific type of person. She's a bit odd, and it's a nice setup to clash with Sir Voin, who's very, straight arrow. Even if she constantly thinks about saying no and bitching back to the king, she doesn't actually do it.
Weak. Basically, this whole time, the castle has been giving all of its iron to the priory, and so in this world, this is not England place. The Christianity is replaced by the patient lady, or it's the patient lady, right?
I think it is.
The steady lady, something like that, who instead of the Eucharist, they use honey. They can do some sciencey stuff though. Like the prior is the one who figured out how to make bee homes with the bee. What are those called?
Honeycombs.
Yes. Honeycombs, yes.
Isn't it funny how the American asks the non-native English speaker for? Sorry.
They're getting all the iron, and they're going to create some kind of cool weapon from it. But everybody in that castle has used up all the iron constantly. That's what it was.
Patrons coming in clutch as always. Thank you, guys.
I did like that Phosphorus was just this stinky weird lady that everyone hated. Again, she's the one who pops the most at the beginning of the novel, and Travis just feels like she's in an anime.
And in the beginning, it's kind of teased as well that she just appeared in this castle not that long before the king arrived and the siege started. So in the beginning, you're like, oh, maybe there's a story there. Maybe there's more to this than it seems. There isn't. Sorry.
We're literally going to never learn almost anything about her. The priory has set up some catapults, and they're shooting some kind of incendiary thing at the encircling forces. Kaboom! Lots of exploding. We should say it's never explained A, why the king is here, B, who Atribia is and why they're fighting. We have no idea why reinforcements aren't coming. There's a line that the princes might not want to help the king. That's it. This book should have been taken place in medieval Europe, because at least then you could be like, oh, okay, some of these things kind of make sense. You can kind of backfill the lack of background in this book, but there is so little depth to this world, and yet the book will act like this is a fully formed world, and it's not. It's just the
book acts as if the reader has all this knowledge, so it doesn't even try to explain or develop certain things. It's just that, oh, here's the Atrabians are attacking, and you're like, what the fuck is Atrabia?
Again, if this was medieval Europe and it was we're in English castle and the French are outside, you're like, okay, the French and English, they don't get along. We can kind of,
everyone hates the French.
Yeah, exactly.
We would get it. Fuck those guys.
Effective villains. Yeah, that would be fine. But in this case, there isn't. Or again, the starving saints here. Sappho says, "Have fucked this book up. Fuck up fantasy." Catholicism, honestly. Yeah, the patient lady portion of this novel adds nothing that it just being Catholicism wouldn't have. Like, it would be stronger if it was. But we'll talk about that more in a minute.
The scene when the Trabians try to lay siege to and breach the gates to the castle, and the warrior nuns, the priory, they all come out with their catapults and they do mathematics, like arithmetics, to calculate where to fire their little projectiles. They're made of iron. I think maybe this is just something that existed in my brain. It's never stated by the book, but maybe they made some kind of incendiary projectile using iron and flint.
It's not explained.
No.
It's
anyway, it catches fire when it hits the ground, and
yes.
It drives the Atrebians back.
And so you're like, okay, cool. And then there's a scene where the prioress shows up to Focine. And Focine used to be a nun at the priory, but she didn't. Okay, so this is the other problem. This is not sketched out well enough. Her relationship to her faith is just not well developed at all.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned she did magics that were heretical. Like, she was interested in heretical things.
She couldn't leave the questions alone. She had to figure out how things worked. And that was bad. This is one of the things you think the book is going to explain more about, and it never actually really does.
I just kept waiting for everything to make sense. And I'm still waiting.
And we're still waiting. And so, and the prioress and her have a little bit of there is a little bit of energy in their dynamic, because there is there's some kind of secret. The prioress doesn't like her and doesn't quite know how she's doing what she's doing. But at the same time, Focine once worshipped her and now doesn't. And you're like, ooh, what's going to happen? Again, nothing. Okay, next scene.
Trailer.
I don't remember what happened. So she's just going around being an assassin, not killing people.
It's Trailer moping about being poor, and she has seen Servoin, and she's angry that Servoin doesn't recognize her, even though she's very dirty and it's been a couple of years. She talks to some of her, because she serves as a servant in the castle now. So she talks to some of her mudrats friends about what's going to happen with the siege and stuff. And then in the middle of the night, she has the brilliant idea that, fuck all these guys, fuck this castle, I'm going to get out, which makes no sense because she also has a revenge plot where she wants to kill Servoin.
Again, it would make so much more sense if she was going to kill Servoin but couldn't because she didn't have a way out, and she was working on a way out to kill.
Yeah, she's if it was just pitched to us, I just don't know why she's preparing her escape route so she can escape after. But now it's but I know that this will keep me from doing what I originally came here to do, because I think it's implied that she came to the castle specifically to kill Servoin. I don't know.
It's real weird.
Yeah, anyway, she says, it's really weird that I'm digging through this wall, trying to make a hole in this wall so I can escape the castle when, I don't want to escape the castle because I have the revenge plot against someone. And that's about it for her first chapter.
She starts digging under somewhere, I think, and she gets to
a little... Well, in the first chapter she's in, she just gets to a little rat-sized hole, and she's all pleased with herself. She's like, and there's no way I can get through there, but it's a start.
It's just so weird. It's I think if there was an easy way to get out of the castle, they would have done this by now, but okay, whatever. And so what happens next, I don't know, there's bullshit. But the next big thing that happens is that through the gates come the starving saints. They're not called that. Mm-hmm. It's like the icons in their church. These people come through that look like the saints. They're painted like them. They have this otherworldly aura about them. They have a cart. They have carts of food. They say that they are the patient lady and the saint of pleasure and the saint of sneezing, and I don't remember what the other ones are. Everyone is immediately just entranced by them. The king is immediately like, oh. Everybody believes that they are who they are for some reason. This part isn't wholly ineffective. You are a bit oh, this is the mystery's heating up. Oh, what could this be? Immediately Servoin is completely captivated by them and within their under their spell. And then we find the part with the prioress, the Abbey lady, happens next, right?
We already had the scene where the king is like, oh, we're going to start eating people.
Oh,
Was that
no, that
before?
was before. Okay. So back before the nuns saved the day, they were like burying a guy, and then afterwards the king and Leodegardas and Sir Voin were at the corpse, and Sir Leodegardas starts cutting into the corpse, and they're like, and Sir Voin's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Look, they won't know it's a person. We have to eat." And
Yeah, and we have to eat while he's still fresh. There's no point in wasting this. He's already dead, and we're starving.
And Sir Voin's first thought is like, "Oh, I had to do that once, but that was a thing where we all made the decision to let other people eat us if we died."
Yeah, it's like she has eaten people before, and yet for some really half-baked moral reason, she's against it now, and she argues with her king about it. It's like,
okay, so this is a problem already. If cannibalism is going to be the big horror part of this book, because it is, why would you desensitize the reader to this concept before you actually have bad people show up? Because the bad people later will be like, "Oh, you were almost going to do it too." And it's like, we're going to talk more about how cannibalism, as Ragged Humanity said, is it's crazy to have a book about medieval cannibalism not engage with Catholic Eucharist at all. Yeah, it is crazy. This, to me, I thought was going to be very interesting in terms of like, this is a castle that's under siege, food is scarce, and like at that point, other people do start to look a little tempting. And if you can play into that with religiosity, and I was like, okay, we have saints showing up now. This is going to be really interesting because, like, how did they get here? How are they going to interact with people? The kind of madness that can grip people in a situation like a siege. It won't happen, though. Back to the present. The prioress shows up, and she goes to the patient. Constant lady? What did they say? Yeah, constant lady.
Constant lady.
Yeah. Constant lady, and is like, "You are what's wrong with society. You aren't the real person." The patient lady is like, "Yes, I am." And then there's a strategic cutaway. And then Focine, one of the nuns comes up and runs up to her and is like, "You gotta come. Something happened to the prioress." Focine goes up, and the prioress's tongue has been ripped out of her mouth. And later we'll find out that Sir Voin did it because Sir Voin is now kind of in a trance led by the saints. And I may be forgetting parts, but basically at this point, we enter the stage of the novel where it becomes really hard to remember what happens.
Yeah, the king announces that to everyone in the castle, that there's going to be a grand feast, and there's not going to be any rations. Everyone's just going to eat just as much as they want, to their heart's content. Like, stuff your bellies full, everyone. We're going to have a feast. Like, there will be wine and there will be meat in plenty. And at this point, I said to Will that, "Oh, so that's how the book's gonna end. They're all gonna die from the shits, right?"
Yeah, she actually did, yes.
Gorging when you've been starving for 6 months doesn't sound like a very good idea.
We hear later that Sir Voin was like the thug who made everybody come to have the feast. But basically, the state of the castle from this point forward is there's a bunch of feasts where people are eating each other, but not really realizing that they're doing it, or like okay with how they're doing it.
And for some reason, Focine sees right through it immediately. Like, she is somehow not under the spell. And at this point, I was like, okay, so is the author kind of playing with a commentary of how authority can blind us to good sense? And that Focine, who is used to dabbling with magic and thinking unconventionally as such, is less receptible to this fake glamour or whatever is going on. But I don't think that happened either.
That's the thing about the folk Catholicism, and how I thought this was going to be more about the religiosity, is because, Focine is the witch. She is, if this was a Catholic or a Christian context, she would be the woman who patriarchy places a lot of blame on for being deviant, right? And so I thought it was going to be something where it was like, oh, her deviantness is, actually kind of a strength in this situation. Because like you said, when the saints show up, the religious people just kind of follow what they say. And that was going to be kind of the interplay. But that is not why. She's just special.
She's secret badass.
Yeah. I think later it may be hinted why. I don't even think I don't think it's ever really explained why she has more magic-y powers than other people.
No, but we'll tackle that when we get to it. At this point, when we're hitting that middle part where the plot kind of blends together for me, I think it's a good point to talk about what in the prose that really annoyed me with this book.
Yes.
Because at this point, in the beginning of a book, there's always like an adjustment period where the authors...
Personal style.
Yes, and also that word I never remember. That's so good. I'm not English.
Clocks don't have gears they don't need.
Never mind. Anyway, there's an adjustment period. You get used to it most of the time. Yeah, no. And I kept waiting for that to happen with this author. And yet there was something just niggling me. And I'm like, why is this narrative, why does it feel so passive and meandering? What I've marked here is all the instances of pronoun followed directly by verb. And this is something you see in some authors' writing, which is an issue with that they start every sentence and every new phrase with she, he, verb. She, he, verb. And when you reach a certain point where this becomes too prevalent, because let's face it, we have to do that sometimes. Like, we can't write a book without specifying what people are doing. But in these first few pages of Phocine's perspective, it just keeps happening quite a lot.
Yeah, you can see, and there is a lot of filtering too, in terms of she saw, she thought, she sat, and like what just stared at her own navel. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and so the book feels kind of stilted to read, and it's like often the author will at certain points. Let me read this. The author will give you too much information. She'll say something that's very easily and like you can infer something between the two characters, and then she'll have one of their characters explain it in their thoughts. Really quickly, Park says, "Oh, both Phocine and Trela don't consume the honey, so the false lady's essence doesn't control them." That was it. Okay, so they mentioned that at the end, but they can't be the only person in 900 people to have not had the honey Eucharist.
The blacksmith hadn't either, but he got torn to pieces.
It mentions there's only 3. So that was the 3, but only 3 people in 900
or so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd.
I guess we're supposed to buy it because they were starving. Like, who says no to honey when they're starving?
I guess, maybe.
Don't pretend, Will. You don't say no to honey when you're not starving.
I only accept corn sugar. I am American. High fructose. So that's kind of the writing throughout this book, is that the characters spend a lot of time thinking to themselves. And it's a problem because a lot of these things could be explored in character conversations. Again, you want a big cast in this castle because they're now eating each other, and so it should mean something. But the truth of the matter is, outside of our main 3 ladies, there's the king, there's Leo Degardis, and there's 2 ragamuffins that Trela was talking to. And those are the only, and the abbess. Those are the only 5 characters who really exist. The abbess gets killed pretty quickly, and her tongue got cut out, and then later she gets killed again. And actually, it is a little bit creepy because you kind of knew her. Leo Degardis, we will meet at several points with less limbs each time. That was a little creepy. I thought that was good. And then the king later is going to die, and it's not going to be interesting at all because he just hasn't talked for over half the book by that point. But there's a real lack of gravity to these. Again, it's hard to feel like this was a siege because we didn't go through the steps with the characters of like slowly getting hungry. And there's you made the point that about Stannis in A Feast for Crows, where his army, you're with him as his army goes into this winter campaign, and slowly they're running out of food.
They travel south from the wall to besiege Winterfell. Mm-hmm. And when they start out, they have a big army. I think it's 3,000 or something. And little by little, as they keep going, winter intensifies. And we start getting reports like every
Who's
morning.
The real English speaker now?
Every morning, Stannis gets status reports from his underlings, and they're like, "Oh, 5 more froze to death this night, and we had to put down one of the horses. It broke its leg and it stepped in a hole." And you really see how slowly they're being eaten away at. And one morning they wake up, and a whole section of the army has just snuck off during the night, and slowly you kind of build towards this panic where you feel like, oh shit, are they gonna starve and freeze to death before they even make it to Winterfell? And even if they do make it to Winterfell, are they gonna have enough people left to do anything?
Yeah.
Whereas here, this siege almost exists as if it's in a bubble of its own, where we don't see what's happening in the castle much. Characters spend way too long thinking about their emotions instead of trying to deal with the fact that they're starving to death. We don't know anything about the enemy.
We don't know anything about the enemy.
We don't know why they're here.
Yeah, we don't know about loyalties to the king. One of our three characters doesn't even feel trapped. She shouldn't be there. Again, this is like a weirdly like she's from a different genre. Again, we don't really get the day-to-day kind of what's going on in the castle. The king can walk around anywhere. It would have been more, again, atmospheric if he was kind of hiding away in his chambers. There's no real attempt to set that up. And again, these are the foundations upon which the atmosphere of the book comes. And so when these people start eating each other, it's described at several points, and it's a little grody. It's like, oh, the children were cutting off their fingers one by one and handing them to each other, or that's not what it is, but it's like that kind of a thing. And you're like, oh, that should be creepy, but it's not. This is not, you're not Nick Cutter. This is not creepy in the way that he can write something that's really creepy, because it's just kind of like, oh,
I think Nick Cutter writes body horror, and he clearly likes writing body horror. This is a book that has an excellent setting for writing body horror, and the author just doesn't. I will say that some of the descriptions of the saints and what they were up to, they felt very alien and strange, especially the saint that Trayla kind of flirts with.
Right. So that's one of the things that's happening is Trayla, she met Voicine at one point and was like, am I the underage girl that you were fighting with, or am I not? And then she goes and ends up seeing one of the saints, and the saint is like the seductive saint. He's like the sexy K-pop boy band saint. And he's like, well, if I could turn into Servoin, and then I could seduce you. And Trayla's like, okay, I'll think about it. And she goes away. That I think is almost literally their interaction is real odd.
Girl, you're so transparent. Even the weird, wicked imposter saint catches on right away.
What had happened, though, with that is that she had been able to dig under. She kept going under the castle. And so she got to a dark spot where a voice started to speak with her, and he was like a creepy voice, and it was like, if you want to leave the castle, it'll only cost you a finger. And she's like, okay, no, I'm not doing that. But that's kind of where her plot line ends up for a bit. Phocine gets, okay, so the sequence of this is a little bit weird, and I don't totally remember it. And some of you are going to be like, ugh, they never even pay attention to the books they read. You need to understand how muddled this book is, in that often the characters will just do the same thing 3 or 4 times. The amount of times that Voicine gets enthralled and then non-enthralled and then enthralled again is a lot. And
you mean Servoin?
Servoin does, yes. And it's one of these things where there's very little connective tissue. There's very little this leads to that. It's just kind of the scenes could almost just be rearranged, which it sounds like she did. She wrote them that way.
Yeah, the setting exists in a sort of void of consequences. So we kind of just go back and forth. And when nothing big changes on the stage, it gets really difficult to remember what happened when, especially when we, for this podcast, we listen to these as audiobooks. And I don't know about you, but I have a harder time processing and remembering things that I have only heard as opposed to seen.
One thing we did say is that this is one of the few times that Maria, we needed her, and she wasn't here, because this would have been a book that she actually could have remembered some stuff about. Anyway, Servoin and Phocine have a slap fight where Phocine is like, wake up! And Servoin is like, I'm hunting you. Eventually, Servoin does kind of wake up.
Because Focine does something. I think she tricks the saint somehow.
St. John says, I thought I was missing plot points, but hearing the recap makes me relieved that, in fact, nothing really happened. And Park says, is that what happened? I thought that it was still a trivia hanging out just in case. It's not just us. I mean, I read some Goodreads reviews. And
we read your final thoughts as well. So
yeah, and it's just like, it's hard to remember what's happening.
Major movements. Okay, so Trayla, she gives away her finger and she makes it outside through a little hole. And for some reason, she strips off naked to do this.
I think that happens later, but yes, that does happen. She gets outside the castle, and they're like, "Oh my god, the siege has been broken!" And she goes and meets some like troops that are hanging out, and they're like, "Yeah, the siege is broken, but we can't get into the castle. It's in this own little weird thing."
And you're like, "Oh, magic!" And
Trayla, who up until this point has just been a real bitch, like she just is a bitch. She's out for herself. She like is very selfish. She's like, have to go back, and you're like, really? And within a paragraph, and the thing is, this monster thing that ate her finger has said, if you come back, I'm gonna chop off more. So literally within about 10 minutes, she's like, okay, I gotta go back. And he comes back and she's like, what do you want? He's like, an ear. And she's like, okay, I'm going back in. And then later, once she's in the castle, she will once again be like, fuck them, we gotta leave. It's a really weird, like it's hard to map what people's motivations are at what point, because the author seems to have had a platonic ideal of what she thinks these characters wanted.
It feels a little bit like she just had to go outside so she could talk to this weird creature in the wall, but also so that she could see that the siege had broken, so that she could return and bring that information into the castle.
She also at one point ran into Focine and helped her out by giving her fruit, and Focine was like, here's a candle that'll burn if you bleed on it. And they were like, thanks bro, but I'm still out of here. On Focine and Voin's plot line, it's the next big thing that happens.
They exist.
Part of it is the antagonists are not really trying to capture them, so it really is like they're just kind of wandering around the castle, like, oh yeah, no, like, so Servoin is trying to find her sword at one point. That's one of the fetch quests she goes on.
Yeah, and we see Sir Leotard getting more and more eaten.
Yeah.
And at one point we have a scene where the king has been butchered and cut up. And before that, there is a scene also where the king talks to Servoin, isn't it? Where he's like, I had to do something.
Oh yeah, there is a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I remember there was a scene where he was
you're correct. Yes.
We had absolutely no choices at all.
Yes.
And I made this decision to try and prolong our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it wasn't the right decision, but here we are.
Yeah, Sappho says, even though I finished the book today, at least half of it is a blur. And Ragamanity says the prose was inherently repetitive, and since there's a lot of back and forth, it's really hard to keep track of everything. The Saints want to teach Focine magic for some time. Yeah, so we're going to kind of just go, I think, by character thread instead of trying to follow them. Focine is becoming more than human. Her powers are unlocking. She realizes...
She's asking questions that maybe should never have been asked.
And she's realizing that the way her magic works is not logical by human standards. There's another world on top of it. And the Saints are like, ooh, that's interesting. I'll teach you something. And then we also realize that she has power over people who drank her water.
Can I just say... foreshadowing
is a technique.
No, I am a psychic, and I'm saying that this is some really half-baked setup for a future book where we're going to find out that Focine is half fake.
Maybe, I don't know. It's lazy is really what it is. Like, it's okay that she's like a magic user, but the fact that she has like such powerful magic is really kind of never explained. But basically, when people who drink the water that she sanctified, like fall under her control, like Servoin. And so Servoin now has to kind of do what she said. And for Focine, it's like, ooh, petty.
Slowly the book kind of brings us into this idea that what is happening in the castle is like a game for the Saints. And it's sort of a tug of war where they're sort of playing with people and where they think it's fun to have influence.
Mm-hmm.
And how they're kind of territorial with each other. And, there's some infighting. and everyone beneath their top bitch, that I can't remember the
patient lady,
are sort of fighting amongst themselves. And by breaking into that hierarchy, Focine kind of gets her interest. Like the lady is like,
Yeah, at one point she's talking to Focine and she's like, no, you aren't what I am, but you could become what I am. Isn't that interesting? And Focine's like, ooh, the heady power of it. Let me make Sir Voin kiss me at one point when she's kneeling in front of me. This book has some like really half-baked BDSM themes in it. Like just really half-baked. The author mentions like submission and negotiated contracts a couple times. And you're like, would you like to say more besides the fact that you're horny right now and having the characters kiss? And the author's like, no, I'll just make a bad book. That's kind of what happens there.
And at some point we figure out that the Saints are allergic to iron.
Yes.
Yeah. And that because of the thing that the Priory did in the beginning of the book where they're fending back the siege, they emptied the castle of iron, which made it so that the Saints could come in.
Yes.
And now Trela has an iron dagger. Is it Trela?
Trela has an iron dagger. Sir Voin gets her sword back at one point. We also basically figure out that the way the Saints are basically fae. Like, it doesn't say that, but they're basically like vampire fae.
The patient lady...
This whole book is such a muddle.
Somehow the dagger ends up with Focine, and she realizes that for some reason the patient lady is really interested in this dagger. So Focine, who is very clever, she does that thing where she bargains with the Fae. So she's like, if you give me influence over every soul in this castle, I will give you this dagger. And for some reason, the patient lady is like, ooh, I really want that dagger. I really want it. Fine, you can have every single person in this castle, every soul in this castle. So they do the trade. And that gives Focine an anime-style mega power-up. And that's about the last thing.
Okay, so some other things I remembered on the way to that. So at one point, Sir Voin and Trailer Trash meet up, and Trailer Trash thinks Sir Voin is the saint disguised as her. So they like have a sexy fight where the book really pushes that Trailer is so attracted, she hates it, to Sir Voin, who again she hasn't seen for 5 years.
Doing the fever touch. It's like a fight to the death, but it's so lustful.
I hated it. It was really bad.
And for like 10 minutes we do that. Will they stab? Will they kiss? Will they stab? Will they kiss?
Will they strap on? And so and basically she kills Sir Voin. And you're like, oh damn, I bet that's not gonna last. And
at that point I was like, dang, does this book have stakes? Did we just get stakes? Was this plot progression?
It is never explained how she is resurrected. Chris, you can explain to us if it is, but I really don't think it's ever explained. Trailer just takes the dagger out and she's better. Sir Voin is like, comes back to life and is like, hey, I didn't kill your dad out of no reasons for shits and giggles. I killed him because he was a traitor. Literally within a minute or two, Trailer's like, oh, okay, I guess I shouldn't have wanted revenge all this time. She just accepts it immediately. The thing that has driven her for the last 5 years through a bunch of like cold, she keeps talking about she was in the wilderness.
Yeah, she has a whole ass assassin plot, and she's like, the assassin just told me that she was ordered to do it and that my daddy was a baddie. And he's like, oh, emotional trauma gone. I believe you now. We're best buddies. I can now give in to my attraction to you.
It's real perfunctory, as people like to say. Moncherie says, was it because there's some iron still in Voin's body she had to come back to life? That's what I think they said, but that makes so little sense. Like that you're dumb, but like that does not even... Kristen says not explained. It's dumb. Something about the dagger being made of iron and the creature under the castle being made of iron doesn't really make sense.
Oh,
Ellen had said that, wasn't it, that the creature under the castle?
Yeah, I did say that
brought her back, but like
because
it's
the
never
creature
actually
under the
said.
castle
It would make sense.
Yeah, the creature under the castle was stated to be some sort of protector that had been there for a long ass time. So I thought that maybe if they were connected through iron, that's why. But anyway, what are we wasting time on? Resurrection tropes are so lame.
Yeah.
Right? It's so lame. Stop.
Their conflict is now at an end because she just believes her that was why it happened. At some point, they figure out about the iron, and Shervoin kills one of the saints with a hammer. It was kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually before she gets resurrected. Trela is like, okay, I'm going to work to help you guys now, get people out of the castle. I'm good now. And she eats the saint who had been trying to seduce her. This gives her powers over the shadowy, hungry things that the saints follow. And then that thing with Foreseen happens, where she gets mega powers and she traps the constant lady under the castle and leaves her there forever. And then she comes back to the castle and is like, I'm too powerful, the dark lady, great and beautiful. And then Shervoin's like, do you want to be my submissive? And she's like, yeah, that would be cool. And then she becomes her submissive, and that somehow stops her from getting control. By the end of the book, in the last chapter, they're all touching each other all the time. Like they're leaning on each other and putting their heads on people. And you're like, this is just so horny. Like you like these characters way more than we do. And that's the book.
I don't understand why was Shervoin, who's a knight, kind of puffed up as the sort of new king figure, like their leader. Yeah. I don't understand how that makes sense.
So let's go. Let's try to trace these things back because they really don't make a lot of sense. Okay, it's stated at the beginning that Shervoin wants to lead, but she has been made to serve, and this is like bad. But the thing is, like, why is it bad that she's serving the king? Because the king actually is not a bad guy. The book keeps treating him like he's done something bad. The king has been doing like bad things, and she's been doing bad things in service to him. I feel like that's intimated to you quite a few times. But no, the one thing we thought she did badly, which was kill the father, there was a reason for that. He was a traitor. And so why is it bad that she is like is subordinate to somebody else as like, instead of leading her own charge? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see a version of this where it's a commentary on patriarchy. You know what I mean? She needs to reclaim her power and not let the patriarchy, keep her on the back lines or whatever. Or this could be something about how, like, she flirts with this dangerousness that she really enjoys, but is actually destructive in the long term. And now by the end of the book, she's learned how to balance these two things. Like, do you understand how, like, there's a shape to how this character arc should work that just there's nothing in.
No, and also she's not noble, so far as we know. So far as the book says, she isn't noble. And in the end, we have three people. One is a crazy witch, one is a knight, sworn to serve, and one is a former lady who was like, she is of noble blood. In the logic of this being a vaguely medieval world where they have just been raised and sort of come out of a monarchy, wouldn't it make more sense if everyone looked at Trela and were like, okay, you lead us now?
It's weird, though, because there aren't even that many people who are looking. And the book is just like, and then she sat on the throne, and Foisine did a kind of submissive thing where she put her head on her leg. And you're like, okay, stop being horny. Because Chris M says very horny, and I guess they wanted to end it with a poly-lesbian relationship, which, I mean, fair, but so many steps are skipped. Not fair.
Is that
write a better book. It's kind of like intimated that they're all like kind of into each other a little bit. I will also make the case that Trela does not need to be in this book. She makes no sense. Foisine and Shervoin are kind of like an odd couple who need to learn to work together. And
and
their original relationship where Shervoin was
and they don't know each other from the start, so they get to know each other in the book, and you're more interested in that relationship.
Travis she's just kind of there. There's no real themes either with like the lady. So that's the other thing, is that like, if this were Christianity, the whole idea of like, oh, it's saintly to eat people. Like, that there's the whole thing about Jesus and the Eucharist and eating of his body. And that could be recontextualized by religion to be like, let's eat the poor because, that's actually good for them. And we're in a castle under a siege, so we're all tempted to eat. And because she's the one outcast, she doesn't accept this, and Shervoin realizes that she is serving this religion who will never see her as a real person because she is a woman, and she needs to step into her own power. Do you see how, like, there are ways that this can work if they wanted to, but just them being fae who were impersonating saints of this fake Catholicism makes no real sense, and it lessens the stakes of the story and any themes in it. Like, this is such a bad fucking book. I'm mad now.
My headcanon after reading this is that we have just read what was once a Song of Ice and Fire fanfic. And the siege in question is probably the Siege of Winterfell. And Sir Voyne is totally Jaime Lannister, who sits in the throne at the end.
I don't necessarily disagree. Thea says, my theory was that Trela was the author self-insert, so she gets to date her hot characters. I mean, it really does just feel like that. And so, like, for another example, the ways that Trela is attracted to Sir Voyne are so surface level. We are not there, and the book we are not there with foreseen in understanding why she is so attracted.
It's physical attraction based on that they did sword fighting and it was kind of hot.
Yeah, there's no real bond. Like, if this was a world where, like, I don't know, gay people were closeted, you could be like, oh, okay, she had a special connection, that she realized something about herself, and that made it more important. But the way it is in the book, it's just like, and they kind of did the sexy hands on the hips thing while teaching to fight. And
and she thought she was a hero because she was a war hero, and then she cut her father's head off. And it's like
the cutting the father's head off part is even stupider, because she says, well, we told people it was because the king was a tyrant, because it's better to be a tyrant than weak. And that's why the king killed her father without explaining that he had betrayed them. But, like, that's not how feudalism works at all. Like, and you might be like, well, this isn't necessarily a feudalistic society. Well, maybe you should describe something about your world then, so we don't just default to Fantasylandia, where nothing has stakes and rules don't matter and there's no physics to the society.
It's very Fantasylandia because it's vaguely medieval, yet everyone has glass windows. That's one thing I can never kind of
Characters say okay at one point.
Yeah, and someone says fuck, which, it doesn't, on its own, it doesn't mean as much. I read medieval fantasy and even historical fantasy where people use modern colloquialism. But when it all adds together, it just kind of breaks the immersion.
My theory is the author didn't want to engage with real Catholicism because of the homophobia, so they made up this bee Catholicism. I mean, the thing is also, the bees actually could have been kind of interesting. Like, Wicker Man is like a pagan film that's pretty horrific. Do you need to go take care of them?
No, it's just an alarm. We'll ignore it and it'll go away.
We'll see if it does. So there is something that could have been done with that, I think, actually, in terms of the metaphor of eating each other, fertility. There's ideas in there. Ragamanity thinks, Moncherie says, minor trigger warning. In the afterword, the author said she wrote this in chunks over years after multiple miscarriages. And it shows. I don't think she was the best headspace to write a cohesive book. Yeah, this is a mess of a novel.
It has so many. It's like, let's say we were making a cake. The book is this cake.
Okay,
and our ingredients.
You need to go turn it off.
Our ingredients are really delicious homegrown eggs, eco-friendly. They've been fed real grass. The yellow is really yellow and tasty, and we have the finest cocoa powder and the best sugar. And then we just mess up the chemistry of how to make these things work together so it becomes a delicious cake. Instead, we get a really stale, really runny cake who's just raw in the middle.
Food metaphor, yes. Why don't you go turn that off and I'll just cut it out of the final video. It's interesting hearing that about how she wrote it, because I am now a little curious if her other book is better, because she seems to write a lot of horror and I was like, why? She's bad at it. But, like, this could be a uniquely bad book, a book where she just really was not in the headspace and wrote it kind of uncohesively. Yeah. I don't have a lot of hope because I don't really believe in human dignity and author's ability to write.
It has happened. Like, I read An Ember in the Ashes and the whole series by Sabatier, and I was like, this is terrible. And then I read the All My Rage, and I thought, this is actually rather decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did that on the channel.
There are bits of this book that are kind of nice. Like, some of the descriptions are nice, some of the sentences are nice. The overall sketching of Focine as a character is pretty good. Like, the whole idea of a king sort of, sacrificing his body so people can eat is kind of cool.
Like I said at the beginning, this book is bad in a different way than the books we normally read. And to be honest, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense because that she wrote this piecemeal, because it also explains why characters sit and think to themselves a lot, because she needed to remember what was kind of going on in that moment. She was kind of exploring it. It wasn't urgent to get to the next plot point. So the plot points just kind of are a little bit flaccid. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe the author is good at other stuff. This is bad. I appreciate that calling this Roasting the Starving Saints is inherently a food pun. Again, we couldn't go through a lot of the plot because it was so confusing.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I usually try to keep like in my mind like a map of the plot beats, and I just couldn't with this one. I just couldn't.
It really, because the characters do just go back and forth. Sirvoin keeps getting re-enchanted by the lady at one point, and then unenchanted, and then Trela wants to leave everyone behind like 3 times, and then decides not to.
Yeah, and at the same time, she's constantly thinking about how she wants to stay so she can kill Sirvoin. Like, there's this back and forth that just really muddles it.
American Manny says, it needed another round of major edits, and I think it might have worked. I think somebody needed to come in and go, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work, and authors do not like people to do that to their work. Authors inherently don't like to have their work cut up like that. Like they wrote the book they like, and so they want to publish that even if it's not the best book to happen. That's honestly, I think, one of the biggest problems with the Harry Potter books is that as they got on, she got so much power that like her editors couldn't really do anything, and so the novels are actually worse and more bloated, but we don't talk about her anymore. So thank you all for joining us. We do have a Patreon if you have made it to this far in the video. It's one for the Unresolved Textual Tension channel. It helps support independent journalism, independent media criticism. You can join a book club. That's how you would get access to this as a live stream. All of the comments we've been highlighting have been in real time and not AI generated.
It's just all of this that's AI generated.
Well, we're the stitch it together. So join that. We have a cool Discord. There's different levels. If you like the kind of, we usually go way more in depth on the prose when me and Katie do our critique streams, which are once a month, and exclusive to Patreon. We also have exclusive to Patreon Q&A live streams. We haven't been getting a lot of questions, so next month I think we're going to do like one of those like fun games that we did a couple times on the main channel. I came up with some ideas for ones, and those aren't going to be posted on the main channel. So join if you would like to see them. Any last thoughts?
How did cannibalism become so boring?
Yeah, cannibalistic Catholicism was boring.
Oh, what happened? What happened?
We love you, our parasocial darlings.
Bye.